here from Magical Spaces, Dens and Enchanted Play. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about safety today and why you need to make sure that your dens are tested and what it all is involved with and how you go about doing it and making sure that they are. So first question you might be asking is, well, why? Why do dens need to be tested? Well, in layman's terms, they're classed as a toy. They fall under the Toy Safety Directive, and for that reason they need to carry the UKCA mark if you're in the UK or the CE mark if you're in Europe. These marks prove that these toys, these dens, these teepees are safe because they've been through a number of rigorous tests that check for various different things that I'll go on into a little bit later, and they just make sure that everything is as it should be. You're buying these maybe for your own children, you're buying these to hire out for other people's children. The last thing that you want, either as a business or a family, is for something to happen to anybody when they're using these dens, these teepees. You don't want them to collapse on them, you don't want them to get cut by a rough edge, you don't want them to get trapped or choking or anything like that. So it's really important that dens, teepees, A-frame tents have been through these tests to make sure that they do carry this UKCA mark. So when a manufacturer builds a teepee or builds an A-frame tent or a toy of any kind, they have to make sure that these are tested by following through quite a number of rigorous guidelines. This is one that I purchased when I first started this business, just to give me a bit of help and a bit of advice right at the beginning of my making the teepees and the dens career. And it just gives you a bit of information about all of the bits and pieces that you have to make sure are right for when you sell these toys. So there are 3 parts to the UKCA mark for a teepee or a den, or the CE mark, and that's EN71 Part 1, EN71 Part 2 and EN71 Part 3. Then there's all the general safety and bits and pieces that sort of go alongside that too, just to make sure that everything's okay. But the 3 EN71 parts are the main ones that you need to be able to prove that your toy passes to be able to carry the UKCA or the CA mark. Some toy manufacturers do complete the tests for these parts themselves, and they can buy a pack online and it takes you through how to do them, and there are some Facebook groups and some other forums out there that give you advice and special help in order to do them. There are also many testing houses throughout the country where you can send your toys to be tested for you. We've chosen to do that at Magical Spaces because we would prefer to get outside backup from the special people that are trained in all of this testing. We can test our toys, and we do still test our toys in-house just to make sure that it's still to the level that we want them to be. But we've sent ours to testing houses for all 3 parts of the EN71 because we want an external person to tell us that they are definitely safe and that we've got the certificates and the proof that our toys, our teepees, our dens are 100% safe. So the first aspect that needs to be taken into consideration when we're testing for the UKCA mark is the first part of EN71, which is to do with the mechanical properties and the physical regards of the toy. I'm here with one of our dens. We, as I've said before, don't do our own testing. However, we do keep a check that our quality standards are always high. When we send our dens off to our testing company in Leeds, EN71 is all to do with the safety of the product as a whole. So there are over 30 tests that they do to check that the toy is safe. Things like, are there any sharp edges, any rough parts that could cause an injury? Are there any small parts which could accidentally be taken off the toy and swallowed, which can cause a choking hazard? Are there any loose cords or ribbons or anything that could cause strangulation? Are there any parts where you could trap something in and cause an injury? With regards to dens and teepees, is the toy safe to be inside of? Is there an escape route? Will the den fall down on the child? How strong is it? And many more factors which need to be taken into consideration. EN 71 Part 2 relates to flammability. So in order to pass this test, you need to test every aspect of your toy. So I don't mean all of this just sent off to the testing house to test for flammability. We've tested the wood, we've tested the fabric, we've tested the screws, the bolts, the inserts, we've even tested the labels that go on the covers, and we've tested the sewing cotton. Every little aspect of your toy needs to be tested for flammability. When you have it done at a testing house, you will then receive a certificate that tells you that your thing has passed the test, the flammability test. What a testing house will also do, and this is another good reason for using a testing house rather than doing it yourself, you need special equipment and stuff to do it yourself, so a testing house already has that for you. They will also tell you whether you need any warnings on your packaging or on your instructions, because if certain things burn at a certain rate, they'll either fail the test, which means you can't use it in a toy, or it needs to carry a warning. For example, not to be used near a lit fire. I forget what the wording is right now. So keep away from fire. That's the one. So you have to put a warning on your packaging, on your product, and the testing houses will tell you that when they complete the test, because that's really, really helpful to know. And of course, you're also following those legal guidelines and making sure that everything that you require is on your toy. EN 71 Part 3 is the one that's changed in recent years, and this is the one that you need to make sure is up to date on either your toy that you're producing or ones that you're purchasing. It's related to the chemical migration within all of the materials that go into your toy. So again, we sent this off to a testing house. This is one that you can't do in-house, but you can purchase certificates online, or even indeed contact the manufacturers of fabrics and stuff, and sometimes the tests have already been done for you, so you can gain those certificates from the company that makes the fabric or whichever material you're using. There is also a really, really good membership for people that make toys. It's called the UKCA Collective, and they send materials off for testing, and then you can purchase the certificates from them, and then you know that you're safe using the whatever it is that you've got the certificate for. We sent, in the early days, we sent all of the bits of materials that we use in making our dens off to our testing house, MTS in Leeds. We sent the wood, we sent the inserts, the bolts, the sewing cotton, the fabric, we sent it all. Everything that we use, elastic, labels to go in, every little piece that goes into making our dens has all been tested for chemical migration. Now, it's not just that simple, especially with the fabric, because the chemicals that are used to make one colour of fabric might be different to chemicals that are used for a different colour of fabric. And again, chemicals that are used to make a certain type of fabric, like cotton, might be different again to how the chemicals work in some satin or lace. So the different types of fabrics need to be tested for this chemical migration too. So we send quite a few times, every year we'll send off a little bit more, or we'll buy in the certificates for different fabrics. And we make sure that we're always on top of what we're using and just double checking all the time that nothing's changed within that chemical constituents, because it's really important that this part is top notch. So we sent off 6 or 7 different fabrics. Now, patterned fabrics have different colours in. So when you send a patterned fabric off for testing, they test the navy in this case, the orange, the white, they test the different colours. that are in the patterned fabric. So it's not just the patterned fabric, it's the colours within that patterned fabric. This one is a real big minefield when you start looking into it, and that's another reason why, again, we use the testing house, especially in the early days, because it was new to us, and so they could advise us and make sure that everything that we got back was right. So when you're looking into buying your TPs or your dens, what sort of thing you should be asking to the manufacturers? Well, you can ask them, are they compliant? Are they UKCA marked? Are they CE marked? And your manufacturer will tell you, yes, they are. They might tell you that the frame is, they might tell you that the covers are, but just be careful, because sometimes they don't test these products as a whole. It's important that you buy TPs, that you buy dens as a product that has been tested as a whole. I've mentioned that earlier, but it's really important to remember that. A lot of people don't realise that you can't purchase a cover from one company and use it on the frame from a different company. They have to work together, they have to be used as a whole. So just make sure when you're asking those questions that you ask, is it tested as a whole or as separate bits? If you're using these dens as a business, if you're hiring them out for people for parties, what you should really get, and your insurance company and maybe even the local council might want to see a copy of, you want to get a declaration of conformity from the manufacturer. That is proof from them that they have been through this process of testing and making sure that it does hold the compliant mark. So ask for a copy of the declaration of conformity for your toy. I hope that's been helpful. If you have any questions about testing and making sure that things are legal and all the requirements and that kind of thing, please get in touch, please drop me a line. I'm quite happy to talk to anybody at any time. There's some brilliant support groups out there for people who want to know more, but I can point you in the right direction of where you need to look, or even if you're looking for a testing house to test a toy, then I can also offer you some advice on that too. Don't hesitate to get in touch. Look forward to hearing from you, and please let me know if you found this useful. Thanks for watching.